This Leighton Vander Esch is something else. And the Cowboys, all of a sudden, with Vander Esch and Jalen Smith on the defensive side of the balls for the Hot Boys, as they call themselves.
We're going to see how good they are in 2 days.
And Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott have been terrific together with Dak. It's more of a Dak-friendly situation in the voice of the Dallas Cowboys. Brad Sham calls us in advance of that huge Week 13 kickoff on Thursday night between the Saints and the Cowboys. How are you, Brad?
I'm all right, Rich. How are you?
Did I set the table appropriately? I mean, you are
nicely done.
You're a first-rate table.
Vander Esch is good, and I'm looking forward to him and Leonard being on the same field in about 3-4 weeks.
That's right, they are. You're going to Indianapolis in Week 15 with the Cowboys. Let's get to this right here, right now. I mean, the conversation that Cooper has changed so much because of what he brought to the table just as a mere threat and backing everybody up off the line. Jerry even said it was similar to Irvin backing people up off the line for Emmett. A lot of people had their fun with that, and guess what? Then he goes for a $180 on Thanksgiving. Is the corner turned on the offense in your mind, Brad?
Oh, let's not say that yet. But they're certainly better than they were. They did two things at once. That was one, and then they made a change in the offensive line coaching and promoted Mark Colombo and brought Hudson Houck in to work with him as a consultant, and Colombo's just got a completely different attitude. So he had been with them as the assistant line coach, and coincidentally to all that, Connor Williams, the rookie left guard, suffered a knee injury, and Xavier Suafilo, who actually started a lot of games for the Texans a couple of years ago, but had been on the street, and they signed him in September as a backup guard. He'd been inactive most of the year, but he got inserted into the lineup going into Philadelphia because they needed a guard, and he's just bigger than Williams. And I don't want to make him out to be John Hanna, but he's played pretty well. And so the whole thing has come together nicely, but before you can say a corner has been turned, they've got to do a few more. But they're back in the conversation now. It has the appearance of being, whatever happens Thursday night, it should be a meaningful December, and that beats the alternative of what it looked like at the halfway point.
Yeah, I mean, where everyone thought this is the end for Garrett. I mean, this is the absolute. How does he handle all that? Because he seems to have the most sunny disposition whenever I'm around him, and none of this seems to affect him. I'm wondering what you see on the day-to-day here, Brad.
No, it doesn't. That as much as it can not affect a human being, he literally does not have a social media presence, nor does his wife that I'm aware of. So anything that's said on social media, which is the nastiest stuff, although the newspapers have been a little unkind, but anything on social media, someone's literally got to bring it to him, and that would happen like once. And I think they all hear and read what is said on the airwaves and what's written in the newspapers, but he is so focused that he's intent on, and they make fun of him, Rich, for saying, our job today is to have the best Tuesday we can, except today they're trying to have the best Friday they can.
Right.
Because it's Friday and football week with a Thursday night game. But I don't think that stuff bothers him. I can't say it doesn't influence him. He understands the sense of urgency, and I think that's at the heart of some of the changes they've made. But it doesn't. He's not worried about whether he's going to lose his job or not.
Well, then take me a little bit further into this situation, Brad, because to continue the conversation through the social media prism. Essentially, everybody likes having fun that he just stands there and claps and just roots the team on like he's got pom-poms. What does he do? Let fans know what he does day in, day out, game day. What does he do to affect success for the Cowboys?
One thing he does, similar to the guy he played for here, Jimmy Johnson, is set the tone. And he actually does like to micromanage a little bit, but not when it comes to his staff. So he will give coordinators and position coaches a lot of rope, and sometimes maybe too much. But he is the one who, as Jimmy did, and I'm not comparing him to Jimmy. I'm just saying I know that Jimmy did that probably as well as anyone besides Parcells who's been here in a long time, and that is this is on Monday. This is what the message is going to be this week. And you knew what it was because by Wednesday, all the players were saying that. And that's what these guys do. And he is really good at setting the message. He's at his absolute best in moments of crisis. When he took over, when Wade Phillips was fired after they'd gone 1-7 in 2010, they finished 5-3. That was a moment of crisis for the team, and he redirected their focus immediately. A few years ago when they had the tragedy of a practice squad player being killed in a car wreck the night before a road game with one of his teammates at the wheel, he redirected their focus, and they won the next day, and their heads stayed in the game. And so he has thought through the first half of the year that they weren't being as aggressive as he wanted them to be. I think he's asserted himself a little bit more at directing the message, and that's what he does. He is very hands-on, but not in a way that intrudes with every aspect of the team. He'll sit in on every meeting, special teams, defensive backs, quarter. He'll sit in on all of them, but not in a way that's intrusive. But he is really involved in every aspect of it, and I can't speak for other organizations, but I know it hasn't always been that way with every head coach this team has ever had. And the thing that people don't understand, and it boggles my mind, is that and it's not just here, but the head coach who you see at the press conference and who you see on the sideline is not necessarily the guy who his players see in meetings. And that's the guy that's important. But the guy who's at the press conferences is the guy that Twitter's reacting to here. And the fans don't like the fact that Garrett is even-keeled publicly all the time. And I will tell you that his public role models, as well as coaching, are Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. And he's told me, I asked him once, because I've known him since he was a rookie here.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him once, why do you not, give him a little bit more at the press conference? He said, Belichick's got a great philosophy about that, which is, hey, how's that going to help me win? I need to manage the message, control the message, and I don't need to win a battle of a press conference. I need to get my team ready to play. And so it's intentional that he is not more filled with bubbling personality at press conferences, and that's not who he is. And the clapping thing just boggles my mind. That's what people have glommed onto that, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, the Clapper. That's his nickname, Brad. That's that nickname.
Yeah, I know.
Clapper.
I know.
At boys_Vox on Twitter. Brad Sham, 40th season, brought 40 seasons broadcasting Dallas Cowboys football. Leighton Vander Esch, who does he compare to kids that you've seen come out over the decades here?
The thing that people said when he came out of the draft was Urlacher, and that's the best comparison I can think of because of size and range. I can't say he's Urlacher yet.
Sure, right.
But if you say, when you see the guy running and playing and tackling and covering, and who does that look like to you if you took all the insignias and the numbers off? Doesn't look like anybody they've had here because he's bigger than Sean Lee. I said at the beginning of this year, actually, that Jalen Smith, if he kept going, was going to be the most explosive linebacker the Cowboys had since Thomas Henderson was a very young player. And Vander Esch actually has that kind of explosion, but we didn't see it in the summer because he missed the entire preseason. So we thought he was good, but he was injured, and we didn't know what we were looking at until we started to see it. And he's just grown by leaps and bounds. And he does look like Urlacher playing, and you can see why people have made that comparison. If he has that good a career, obviously, then they've done pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they got two guys who are all over the field in the linebacker position. I mean, him and Jalen Smith are absolutely everywhere, sideline to sideline, Brad. And then you got those guys up front, the so-called hot boys, who are really bringing the heat. Now, a GOAT. There's no question, a GOAT at the highest, perhaps, level of play that Drew Brees has ever had. I mean, he's just putting balls in windows so tight, and everybody's catching everything. And Kamara and Ingram are dynamite. What do you think the chances are here, and what do the Cowboys need to do to come up with the win, in your estimation, Thursday, Brett?
I mean, the obvious answer is, so you're telling me there's a chance?
It's more than Dumb and Dumber, I'm sure, but
I would say to you that I don't see how they're going to do it. Had I not seen in 2009
that's
with
right.
the Saints coached by the same head coach and quarterbacked by the same quarterback.
Yep.
At home on a Saturday night, 13-0.
Hadn't lost yet.
Dallas goes in 8-5 with DeMarcus Ware having been carted off the field with a neck injury the previous Sunday, and didn't know he was going to play literally until he got in the locker room that night. And Dallas came out very aggressive on offense in the Superdome, hit him right in the mouth, and played with him toe-to-toe all night and won the game. So I saw that. So I'd be an idiot to say it can't happen. I cannot stand here and tell you I know how it's going to happen Thursday night, because you're right. Drew Brees is playing at as high a level right now as I don't know if I've ever seen anyone play at a higher level. Brady's had great years. Aaron Rodgers has been phenomenal. Drew Brees right now cannot make a mistake if he tries. He doesn't care who's catching it. 4 touchdowns to undrafted rookies. I'm not sure he'd met them all. He is at the very top level. So, I mean, the formula is you have to get after him. You have to make him uncomfortable. It's very hard to sack him. You have to make him uncomfortable. You have to cover at the back end. They're going to have to plaster. And then when you have the ball, you have to be who you are. Very aggressive. Use your running back. Dominate the ball and score at the end of it, and shorten the game. And that's the formula. Whether they can do it or not, I don't know. But the Saints are pretty good, but they're going to try. That
was the NFL Network coverage of that Saturday night game, Brad. I'll never forget it. We had Jerry Jones on our pregame show, and as you know, he only knows one speed when having a conversation on the air, and he just flat out said, "I'm as nervous as a cat," because he knew. I think the implication was, and we all sensed it, that had they lost that game, he would have had to fire Wade right then and there, and he didn't want to do it. And as you know, he didn't do it until it was 1-7 the next year. And so that was amazing because that place was lit. It was a weekend game. Right. It was a night game. So there was no blue flu needed to take a day off in New Orleans. People had spent the whole day lubricating, if you will, for the game. It was so loud that night, and they won that football game. It was unreal. And the Saints, by the way, lost all their remaining games that year, went into the postseason, won the Super Bowl anyway. That was incredible.
Yeah, exactly right. And the Cowboys won their division and won a playoff game, one of only 2 that Garrett's won as the head coach. But they're 6-5 now. They were 8-5 then, and the parallels are similar. I actually asked Garrett if it was helpful to him to have watched any of that game, or were the Saints too different? And he said that the personnel and the schemes are different enough that you wouldn't necessarily get anything from it, but the approach is that they took that night that was successful. Not the tactics necessarily, but the psychological approach is what they're going to have to be able to play with these guys.
Brad, love our chats. Thanks again. Have a great cast on Thursday. Let's chat again soon.
Thanks, Rich. Look forward to it.
As always, that's Brad Sham.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.